Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Maher, I'm always delighted when our colleagues in Ottawa get to hear about the contributions that our West Coast can make to Canada's economy. And I really appreciate the thoughtful framework that you set out in your introduction around the need for an integrated network of infrastructure supporting the new trade patterns we hope to see in Canada, including, of course, short sea shipping from the Port of Nanaimo. I was also glad to see you elaborate in one of your earlier answers about the nature of that infrastructure, including access to railhead that would most help unlock that potential, including short sea shipping from our West Coast. Now, my colleague talked about the budget and the negative consequences of not passing it, and I actually want to ask the inverse question. I'd like to ask you what, in dollar terms, we need at the Port of Nanaimo from that budgetary pool to avoid those negative consequences and to realize the potential and the opportunity that we have at the Port of Nanaimo.
Thank you for your question. I think if I look at the positive aspect of the numbers we need to do that, we definitely have a long-term plan to develop, and we see the whole project like Vancouver Island, a million people almost on Vancouver Island, no commercial port per se. Everything moves by truck. So we're looking to establish rail back on the island that combines with the port activity and then moves it by short sea to Vancouver. We see a whole project there that, based on our initial assessments and our initial costings, is under $1 billion to reestablish rail and establish it on the Lower Mainland and provide that additional capacity of some 1.2 to 1.4 million TEUs a year on the island. We very much see ourselves as freeing up that capacity to allow Vancouver to better move exports out of the country.
Introduction, you talked about the ballooning costs that came from the delay in receiving the money for the last phase of the project, the $105 million allocation. How quickly do you need those funds to come through in order to avoid the same consequence for your future for the future plans?
For the future plans, I think what we would need is something to be happening within 2 years. I don't see it moving any faster than that by the time you put everything together, but you have to get orders out there and get those prices fixed. Otherwise, they will continue to grow in the marketplace.
So especially in the context of recent job losses on the island from the closure of mills resulting from the trade situation with the United States that the government hasn't yet succeeded in addressing. Can you talk about how your plans would help augment or mitigate some of the negative impacts that are coming from the government's inaction on the forestry file?
Obviously the construction would bring more jobs and more revenue into the communities that are affected as people move and find new jobs. The people that are in the forest industry are obviously skilled, labor and able to move around and be desiring to move around to make that happen. I think also on a long-term ongoing basis, as we build a new facility, there's additional employment there for the longshore labor and moving ahead, which I think is very important in our communities and has been there for a lot of years and is respected in the community.
Before I get red carded, I'm wondering if you could elaborate a bit on how important it is to get government out of the way and make these projects move at as quickly as possible in order to realize the benefits.
Yeah, I think it's really important, and when we look back through the NTCF process where we got some funding for the last piece of infrastructure that we built, we've been very successful. We've gone above our weight, I would say, but we really it needs to move. It needs to be cohesive. There's multi-departments involved whenever you're doing anything in the water and around ports. And I think there needs to be that central processing facility that allows it to move quicker. And so you're just speaking to one person at one time that's going to make the decisions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marr. Thank you, Ms. Cronus.